This is my audience. Reporter Katie Watson's article on the BBC News website on May 20th, 2016 explains how 9 out of 10 Mexican women have faced sexual violence throughout their life. Machismo is the belief that men are superior to women. Rising crime rates in Mexico has forced Mexicans to address machismo and the harm it has done to women through sexism, violence, and misogyny. You may have seen machismo throughout your community in movies, telenovelas, or in your workplace. As a Mexican woman, I have seen and faced machismo. In order to understand the struggles that Mexican women go through because of machismo, it is important to first understand the sexual violence that Mexican women face, the beliefs in the Mexican culture, and the true meaning of machismo. As we begin to understand how machismo affects women, now let's talk about the violence against women in Mexico. Countless of Mexican women face violence every day. Many women are even scared to go outside because of the rise in crime rates and femicides. Reporter Natalie Galon's article on CNN News on July 16, 2020 explains how in the first 4 months of 2020, 987 women and girls were murdered, and of those, only 308 were categorized as femicides. In managing editor Emma Sade's article on the Best of CNO, on August 28, 2020, it explains how femicides and violent crime rates against women has been rising, and it has risen by 7.7% since the beginning of 2020. Domestic violence against women has greatly increased due to the coronavirus pandemic. Going back to Sade's article, the president of Mexico has tried to undervalue the frightening situation happening in Mexico by cutting 75% of the federal Women's Institute budget and has declared that most of the domestic violent calls are fake. Referring back to Galon's article, there has been a great increase in femicides, and in April, 267 women were murdered, and that was the most fatal month since the past 5 years for women. Now that you are more familiar with the struggles that women go through and the violence that they face every day, let's discuss how machismo restricts the opportunities that Mexican girls and women are given. Machismo greatly limits the education and job opportunities for Mexican women. Girls aren't given the opportunity to complete secondary school because they are expected to stay at home and become housewives. Researchers Englander, Yanez, and Barney explained in the Journal of International Women's Studies in an article titled Doing Science and Within the Culture of Machismo and Marianismo in July and August of 2012. They discovered how very few women participate in science because of the very limited access to higher education. Referring back to Englander's, Yanez, and Barney's article, they also explained how young girls are expected to carry off traditional gender expectations instead of fulfilling a career. This shirt was sewn by a Mexican woman who had to get out of secondary school, and instead of completing her dreams and doing a profession, she had to become a stay-at-home wife and clean for her husband. Even the few Mexicans who receive an education, they are still limited to administrative positions due to machismo and gender inequality. Reporter Veronica Ortez's article on the Moron West on January 18, 2018 discovered that in Mexico, barely 2 out of 10 engineers are women. And referring back to Ortez's article, hardly 4.2% of CEO positions in Latin America are occupied by women. Since we just discussed the different ways that machismo limits Mexican women, now let's discuss the cultural expectations that they are given. Machismo has amplified the traditional gender roles that girls are given. Mexican expectation for women is to stay at home while men are able to leave for work and come back whenever they want. Writer Denise's article on Bienvenidos a Mexico on February 24, 2015 explains how a Mexico traditional role well known as la calle, the street, and la casa, the home, explains how men are able to leave whenever they want since they provide money to the house, and women cannot leave their house without their husbands because they are considered housewives. Writer Martina Zolado's article on Matador Network on March 2nd, 2018 explains how only about 45% of women around the ages of 16 and 64 are employed, but over 75% still undertake unpaid house chores and child care. And this poster, it shows a Mexican woman and the chores they do at home. For example, she's folding or she's cooking, or the things they do in their free time like painting just to make extra money. Machismo has been portrayed on TV shows and show how women are expected to change their personality and the way they dress just for men. Writer Morena's article on the Harvard International Review explains how Mexican women at a very young age face a misrepresentation or absence of females in telenovelas and movies. Referring back to Zolado's article, 40% of women in Mexico choose to wear clothing that makes them appear less attractive to steer clear of the likelihood of getting sexually harassed while out in public. This is an apron that most Mexican women wear because they cook and clean most of the day. In conclusion, now that you have a better understanding of the struggles that machismo has given women, and you recognize the traditional Mexican beliefs and how they have influenced the sexual violence that women face and the gender roles that they're given. For centuries, Mexican women have been living in fear, afraid to go out in public, and have been obeying their husband. Unfortunately, machismo is still a very big problem, and more people need to be aware of it. Even though more people have started addressing it and more women have started speaking up about it, it is still a big problem, and more people need to admit that it is actually still happening. Thank you for watching.